Hello, and welcome to the Mature Living Podcast. I'm Riley Runnels, editor of Mature Living, and each month we will be interviewing someone in the community who is making a difference or has a unique story to tell. This month we are featuring Dr. Greg Postel, the 18th president of the University of Toledo. As former interim president and executive vice president for health affairs at the University of Louisville, Dr. Postel has more than 25 years of experience with academic medical center and university operations, governance, clinical care, teaching, and the support of research. In addition to an accomplished career as an academic interventional neuroradiologist, Dr. Postel served 18 years as chair of the Department of Radiology at the U of L School of Medicine and held the positions of Vice Dean of Clinical Affairs and Chairman of the Board at University Medical Center in Louisville. He was the founding board chair and later CEO of the University of Louisville Physicians. Dr. Postel began serving as interim president in 2020 with the University of Toledo and was officially appointed to the position during a special Board of Trustees meeting in 2021. All right, let's jump right in. So first, thank you, Dr. Postel, for joining us.
You're
We're
welcome.
so excited to get to know you and talk to you a little bit. So first, I think we want to just start all the way back at the beginning. Tell us a little bit about how you grew up and, what led you to go into higher education.
Yeah, so I grew up in Canton, Ohio, and had a great childhood. Mom and dad, super supportive. My dad was a mechanical engineer and always talked about me going to college from the time I can remember. He went to Iowa State University. That's where he trained to be a mechanical engineer. So we were in Canton, Ohio, growing up. I was an only child, and so I got all kinds of attention. I was spoiled, and I went to Hoover High School in North Canton, and I think it was my dad's doctor, his internist, had gone to the College of Worcester, and so started talking to us about what a great place that was to go to college. And so when I got into my junior year or so in high school, we looked around like every high school student does, but we were pretty set on Worcester. I guess this guy really had done a great job selling us.
For sure.
On the college, yeah.
And tell me a little bit about how you decided your path at Worcester.
Well, so interestingly, it was another physician. So my pediatrician, Dr. Arnold, who I positively worshipped, I wanted to be like him. So I wanted to go into medicine. And I changed my mind over the years several times about what field of medicine, but I never changed my mind about going to medical school. I probably decided when I was 6 years old that I was going to go to medical school, and I never thought about anything else.
That's amazing. That's always the best, I think. And tell me kind of how you went from Worcester to Case Western.
Well, so Case Western is a top medical school, and there was a well-known relationship between the College of Medicine and the College of Worcester. They sent students there who were good college students on a regular basis. And so one of the reasons I was excited about going to Worcester is I knew if I did well there, I would at least have an interview. I'd have a chance,
of course,
to go to medical school at Case Western. And just like I looked around for colleges, I looked around for medical schools too, but I had been thinking about Case for a long time. It's just a great place. I was very happy to be accepted there.
Definitely. And tell me about your residency and your fellowship experience. So why radiology? And then obviously, how did you connect with the Cleveland Clinic Foundation and with the Mayo Clinic Foundation?
Yeah, so I changed my mind. I was going to be a pediatrician because I wanted to be just like Dr. Arnold.
Of course.
But I changed my mind and went to several different areas. I was always interested in the brain. And so I thought for the longest time I was going to be a neurosurgeon. And then along the way I met a neuroradiologist, which is a radiologist that specializes in the study of the brain and the spinal cord. And I spent a month with that person and just loved it. So I decided that was a good way to become a diagnostician, but still be involved in stuff with the brain.
Yeah.
And so I picked radiology, and I applied to residency programs all over, and it turns out that one of the best programs was just in the backyard.
Right.
Several blocks down the street from Case Western is the Cleveland Clinic. And so they accepted me, and I did my residency there.
That's amazing. That's awesome. So tell me, in your post-schooling and your practical experience, what then led you to University of Louisville?
Well, I didn't go straight from Cleveland to Louisville. So when I finished my residency at the Cleveland Clinic, because I was interested in neuroradiology, that requires a fellowship after residency.
Right.
And so I had to look for fellowship opportunities. And so once again, I interviewed at a bunch of places, and I interviewed at the Mayo Clinic and just fell in love with it, and they hired me to be a neuroradiology fellow.
Yeah.
So I moved to Rochester, Minnesota, and I lived there, and I did my fellowship, and I spent a year on faculty there, and that's the point at which I started looking for a real job, because now my training was finally finished.
Of course.
And I applied for jobs a lot of different places, and I came across the University of Louisville and was interested because I knew there was a chance that I could become the section chief of neuroradiology fairly soon in my career because of someone who was stepping down, and so I took advantage of that. And I took the job in Louisville, and I moved there. I didn't know anybody.
Right.
And I started a career there.
That's a brave experience, going somewhere where you don't know anyone. And especially, I want to talk too, you worked in many different positions within Louisville and within that department. Can you talk a little bit about your progression then to getting to that Vice Dean of Clinical Affairs?
Well, yeah, the Vice Dean of Clinical Affairs was very brief, and that was just one point along the way. So I had a lot of different jobs in Louisville, like you said. I started off as just a faculty member, and then I was put in charge of the residency program for radiology, and then I was the section chief for neuroradiology, and then in 1997, about 3 years after I got there, I became the department chair of radiology. And so I did that for, from 1997 until 2015.
Wow.
So a long time.
Yeah.
Over 17, 18 years I was the department chair. And while I was the department chair, I helped, along with some of the other department chairs, forming a big multi-specialty medical practice called the University of Louisville Physicians. And we had 900 doctors, and so I became the CEO of that organization, and that's the point at which I was the Vice Dean for Clinical Affairs, because I was the president of the medical group.
Gotcha.
And then the Executive Vice President for Health Affairs left, and I was promoted to that role. And so I served in that role where I was over the health sciences campus. And then the president left, and so I became the president of the University of Louisville. And I served in that role from the end of 2016 till 2018.
Right.
And at that point, I had been in Louisville for about 25 years. And so I thought about retiring, but I was only 56 years old or so, 50, maybe even 55. And so I thought I would just do a sabbatical and spend some time thinking about other options. So I did a sabbatical. I worked for a year as a senior partner at Korn Ferry doing consulting for higher education. And then I got a phone call that they needed a president here in Toledo, and they asked me if I was interested in another presidency.
Yeah.
And I thought I'll give it a try, but it was right at the beginning of COVID.
Right.
So it was a terrible time to take a new job.
Right. Did I see too that at UT you are a professor in the Department of Radiology?
Yeah, that was in the background. So that's
Okay.
your rank is really kind of your appointment. That's not the actual job, that's the rank.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So, tell me about that decision of accepting the position here when they had that opening. What, made you want this position after your sabbatical?
Well, I had never been to Toledo, and they interviewed me on the Zoom. Even the interview was virtual.
Right.
And because of COVID, had really changed everything. And so, what interested me in the job was the similarities with what I had been doing before. So they wanted someone, if at all possible, who had been a president before, because with COVID, that was so distracting and so much time had to be spent on that they didn't want somebody who was learning on the job to be president, right? So I knew those tasks. So that was a plus. And then also the hospital here was struggling financially. And I had spent a huge part of my life working with hospitals and medical practices.
Of course.
So I had that background. So I think the combination of having been a president before and then them needing help with the medical world, it seemed like a real good fit. And
Definitely.
it was. It was a rather easy transition for me.
Yeah, well, and especially during COVID, it needs to be an easy transition, like you said.
Very few of us were working on campus.
Right.
Most people were home by far.
For sure. And obviously UT is known for its medical school and its medical program. So how do you kind of feel that your previous medical experience helps you to understand the school here and then its place within the university at large?
Well, almost 60% of the budget of the University of Toledo is clinical care. And so, I think the fact that I spent, most of my academic career working with medical schools and medical practices, made that a perfect fit. I think it would be difficult, for a person who had no medical experience at all to manage that big a project.
And do you ever find yourself being a little biased toward the medical program here?
Well, I sure try not to be. We've got all kinds of other schools that we've got to take care of too.
Of course, yeah. Well, that's one of the great things I think about UT and about just college in general is the variety of programs that people can be involved in. But obviously with your medical background, it seems like kismet. So tell me a little bit about your professional pursuits outside of UT. Are you involved in Toledo with any other boards or organizations?
I'm on the Museum of Art board, TMA, and positively love that.
Yeah.
And I'm very involved with our church, St. Joseph's Parish in Sylvania. And I have two 13-year-old twin boys.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so between the two of them and all their school activities and their sports and playing Uber driver,
right,
and the church and the museum and our family activities and my job here, that's enough to keep me out of trouble.
Yeah, it definitely keeps you busy for sure. And so, outside, obviously you said you have your family and other activities, but what else do you like to get into when you're not here on campus?
I love to exercise. I like to work out. I like to run. I like to swim. When I have time, I play tennis. I don't get to do it enough.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, I play the piano. We like to travel. We like to cook. We have all kinds of activities.
Seems we have a lot of the same hobbies there. I love that. So tell me a little bit about what the future holds for UT. I mean, I know you were put into this position in kind of a tumultuous time. And so what is your, short-term, long-term plan for the school?
Well, the school is in so many ways doing well. And of course, like all universities these days, has struggles. We are working really hard to increase our enrollment. The enrollment here had been decreasing for close to 15 years in a row. And so we're working real hard on that, and that is difficult. That takes a lot of time, and it's going to take a lot of patience and a lot of hard work to get past that. But the university has so much potential. There are a lot of great people here. The mission is wonderful. The hospital is doing well. Our research programs are doing well. And we have students who are graduating and going off and doing wonderful things.
Yeah.
And so, what's there not to be excited about?
Absolutely. And I have to say, we had Coach Tricia Cullup on the podcast a few issues ago. And, just seeing the way that UT connects with the community, I think is so special and different from some other universities. There's a lot of community outreach that you guys do here. And do you feel that was a draw for you too, was how close-knit Toledo is as a community and the way that UT fits into that?
Absolutely. It is a close-knit community. Tricia Cullup is especially good at this. I'm going to be doing the coaches show with her tonight at Stubborn Brothers, and she is interesting because not only is she a good coach, but she makes sure that every woman on that team has a mentor who helps her with her field of study to try to help understand, what life is going to be like after basketball and after college.
Right.
And having that kind of tie with the community, she can just pick up the phone and call anybody, and they'll volunteer to help a student athlete. So that's really great.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's smaller pieces of the puzzle like that I would imagine makes you so proud to be leading this university, of course. And from your standpoint, how do you feel that UT stands out? You're talking about enrollment, but what do you think makes UT a competitive place for students to be looking into?
Well, there are a lot of things. So, we have a big emphasis here on STEM-H, and so fields of study that involve science, technology, engineering, math, and healthcare represent a very large portion of what we do. And so, the experience is exceptional in those areas. Those aren't the only things we do, of course. But there are areas that are notable, and there are areas that there's a big demand in the job market. We offer wonderful experiential learning here for our students, and so our engineering students, for instance, spend 3 semesters doing co-ops. Our business students do internships. Our teachers teach in the classroom. Our clinical people all have experience working with patients, real early on. And so when you graduate from here, you don't just have classroom knowledge, but you have real on-the-job training experience as well.
Yeah, definitely. And what to you has been the most rewarding aspect of working with UT so far?
I think seeing some of the people who I know have potential sort of blossom and grow into the roles they're in and really start making contributions and helping be very productive members of the team.
For sure. Yeah, definitely. And I am curious too, we hit a lot in this interview, but tell me, is there anything else that you would want people to know about you?
About me? No, I'd want you to know more about the University of Toledo.
Definitely.
If you're a high school student, not sure where you're going to go, come visit. We'll give you a great tour. We'll show you the university and its people, and you'll get a great experience here.
Perfect. And we love to do fun little questions within these interviews too, just to kind of get a sense of you outside of your role here. So first, I'm curious, what was your first job?
When I was in high school, my dad, who I mentioned earlier was a mechanical engineer, hired me for the summer to work with a crew of people to clean out a giant hangar where they used to build blimps.
Oh my
in
gosh.
Akron, Ohio. It had been used for decades as a storage facility, and they were repurposing it. It was my job to figure out what to do with all the stuff and how to move it out.
Wow.
And where to store it. And so I was sort of a rigger and a project manager and all of that stuff for the summer.
It's a big undertaking for a first job. Are there any charities that you support that are close to your heart?
Yeah, all sorts of things. The main one right now is our church. We give a lot of money to the church and support that because that's where our children go to school and that's where we attend, and so that's important to us. And the museum I mentioned earlier, and the whole family's involved down there one way or another.
For sure. And if you could describe yourself in one word or phrase, what would it be?
Loyal. I tend to be a loyal friend and a loyal family member and a loyal employee.
Yep, that's what I would say for mine too if I was answering that question. What is the last book that you read or one that you're reading right now?
I'm reading this one right now. It's on my desk. It's called The Great Upheaval. It's talking about what a mess higher education is in the United States.
Definitely seems like an appropriate read, but hopefully that'll be a helpful read too. What kind of music do you listen to?
Several things. I love just popular music because I have kids, right? So naturally we hear that all the time on the radio. But I love jazz and classical.
Well, being in Toledo, loving jazz is a very easy thing because there's always jazz around you. What is your favorite medical movie or television show?
Medical movie, I don't know about that. We watch a lot of sports.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of college sports on television. That is probably on all the time because there's somebody there who's watching it.
Fair.
So that crowds out everything else.
Definitely.
I don't watch a lot of television.
That's fair. I mean, you're a busy man. Don't really have a lot of time for it. What are some qualities that you value in those that you work with and those you associate with personally?
Well, I like people to be dependable and honest and hardworking and loyal, like I mentioned earlier. I think those are important qualities.
Definitely. And finally, if you could give your childhood self any piece of advice or encouragement, what would you say?
Don't worry so much about change because a lot of times change turns out to be a good thing.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time. We so appreciate having you on, and our listeners are excited to get to know you.
Absolutely.
We want to thank you for listening. Make sure to check out Mature Living magazine in print and online, as well as all of the publications under Adams Street Publishing, including the Toledo City Paper, Toledo Area Parent, Ann Arbor Family, Current, and Findlay Living. Find us on social media or connect with us if you have any story ideas to share.